Hi, and welcome back to the Crash Course series. I had a request for discussing Remdesivir, which is one of the therapeutic agents used to treat COVID-19, which is caused by the virus SARS coronavirus 2. I want to start by talking about the basics of how SARS coronavirus 2 works. And first of all, SARS-CoV-2 is a coronavirus. There are four genera, which is the plural for a genus, of coronaviruses. There are alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. The ones that we've seen recently are all from the beta genus. SARS coronavirus, which we saw around the world years ago, is from a bat and a palm civet reservoir that then transferred to humans and caused disease with a case fatality ratio of approximately 10 to 15%. 15% is what I found on the World Health Organization, although I've seen 10 listed elsewhere. MERS, or Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, is a coronavirus that had a reservoir in camels, and it had approximately 34.4% case fatality ratio from the World Health Organization. It is an RNA virus, and it has a spike protein. We just deem that S, and the spike protein has 76% similarity to SARS coronavirus spike protein. This is why COVID-19's virus got the name SARS coronavirus 2. It's because the virus is so similar to the original SARS coronavirus. Let's talk about how it enters into cells. So SARS coronavirus 2 uses the human angiotensin converting enzyme 2 receptor to gain entry into cells. And the spike protein binds to ACE2, and then endocytosis is activated. And it does this, and I'm going to mention these molecules here, even though they have pretty long names, because they are targets for therapeutics that we might discuss later. They uses phosphatidylinositol 3,5-bisphosphate, or PI3,5P2. This is one of my favorite molecules when I was back in the cellular molecular biology department, just because it's really fun to say phosphatidyl anything. Phosphatidylinositol 3-phosphate 5 kinase is the enzyme that makes PI3,5P2. And there are some therapeutic agents that people are working on that target this enzyme to make it so that SARS-CoV-2 can't get into the cell. Proteolytic host activity results in the fusion of the cell membrane and release of the RNA virus into the cell. I'll kind of show a picture of that here in a minute. And then it uses the cell's own replication machinery to make copies of itself, and ultimately it destroys the cell in the process. So if we look here, I drew a little picture, pardon my drawing, I hope it's clear enough. Here's our SARS coronavirus 2 virus, and it's binding to the ACE2 receptor. It gains entry in through endocytosis, and the host's own enzymes cleave the spike proteins and cause it to bind to the other proteins that are here in black. And this causes a fusion of the membrane to the membrane of the virus, and the RNA of the virus is released into the cell. Now it's floating around in the cytoplasm of the cell. From here, we can get translation of the RNA directly to proteins. And these proteins, through again host enzymes, undergo proteolysis, and we get replicase. We also can use this a template from the RNA, a DNA template, to make more mRNAs, and also just to create copies of the RNA. So you end up with lots and lots of RNA, lots of mRNAs that then get used to make more proteins for the spike proteins and other proteins that surround the virus. So going through it again, binding to ACE2, entry in, fusion of the membrane releases the virus's RNA. We get a bunch of transcription and translation going on all in here. And ultimately, we make more virus, and the virus is ultimately released and goes back out to the body to infect more cells. every single step here is very complex, and this is this is overly simplified. There's a huge amount of complexity going on just in the binding and the endocytosis. There's a huge amount of complexity going on in here as well, and then in the release. So those are all areas where you can try and target the virus with therapeutic agents. Some random thoughts that I had when I was reading through papers to make this is everywhere I read, all going back all the way to 1995 or 2004 with uh, SARS coronavirus, I saw the paper's introductions discussing that we needed to figure out how to treat emerging coronaviruses. And Agostini et al. On March 6, 2008, published a paper in which they said that the imminent threat of human emergence underscores the need for broadly active antivirals to combat any coronavirus that may emerge. So I just really thought that this was an interesting quote. So I wanted to throw it in there. Now I want to talk about proofreading a little bit. So human DNA replication machinery makes between 30,000 and 50,000 mistakes each replication. What we're referring to here is DNA polymerase. And if you're going to go back to your biology back in the day, we know that DNA polymerase is what goes along the DNA and is making copies. So luckily, we have proteins that proofread the DNA and fix mistakes, reducing it to a few hundred mistakes. And this is mainly due to exonuclease activity, but there are other proofreading molecules as well, but we're going to focus on this guy because it's going to come up with SARS coronavirus 2. Further error reduction in the G2 phase of the cell cycle brings the error rate to less than 10 mistakes, which is pretty impressive that we went from 30 to 50,000 mistakes each time we replicated down to less than 10 with some of these proofreading and error reduction strategies in the cells. So what's an exonuclease? Basically, if you think back to biology, we learned that the DNA polymerase it's not just this one thing, there's a whole complex, and the exonucleases are part of this complex. And when the complex recognizes a mistake, it moves the whole thing backwards one nucleotide. And then the exonuclease chops off the mistaken nucleotide at the end. And that's what the exonucleases do. They chop off nucleotides at the end of a DNA strand. And then the complex, once this happens, is able to move forward. We see a little picture here. Madeline Price Ball made this picture. I'm using it under the Common Creative License. And we see DNA polymerase coming in. We see extension. We see extension again, but we get an error. So it recognizes that error. We move back one. We get proofreading. The exonuclease excises it out, and then we extend some more. We keep going. And that's how these exonucleases work. I thought this was a nice picture. With SARS coronavirus 2, we find that it does use proofreading, and experiments have shown this. And it does limit some of the antiviral treatments that we can use. For example, ribavirin, which has been used, and also 5-FU, the way they work, the way they appear to work, is that they act, at least with ribavirin, acts like an adenosine or a guanine. It can be either one. So when the virus replicates itself, it causes mutations at a very high rate. Some of those mutations are fatal to the virus. And this is called nucleoside analog treatment. And that's what we've used with some of our antivirals in the past. It's also for cancer treatment as well. 5-FU is most commonly known for chemotherapy. Viral exoribonucleases can fix these mutations. And like we said, the SARS coronavirus 2 does use proofreading. So when we're looking at the picture again, and we have transcription going on in all these locations, there are these exoribonucleases that are fixing mistakes. So if we get mutations, the SARS coronavirus 2 is going to fix those. And these treatments are not going to be as effective. Now, if we look at remdesivir, it is in the same class as these nucleoside analogs. However, it seems to work better than some of the other ones, and the question is why. So there is research out there that shows that the remdesivir is causing an early chain termination in the transcription of the viral RNA. And this avoids proofreading because we're not creating a lethal mutation, we're just stopping the transcription from happening before it's finished. Other mechanisms of action of nucleoside analogs include the lethal mutations that we talked about, and also perturbation of the balance of nucleic acids that are floating around in the cytoplasm. There are some issues, so for instance, resistance, and there has been some research that has shown possible resistance in coronaviruses to remdesivir, GS5734, in vitro. To conclude, the remdesivir looks to be causing early chain termination, where we are avoiding, if we go back to our picture here, we are avoiding making these mRNAs. So it tries to undergo transcription, but these mRNAs stop early. They don't finish. And then the virus isn't able to translate them, because they're not complete, into actual proteins to rebuild itself. That's the big idea there. If you want more information, I do have a number of references that I thought were really good that I listed here. And if you go to Prezi, you can find my presentations. They're available to the public, and look at them. And I hope this was somewhat informative. Thanks for watching.